Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to Glasgow. My name is Karen. I am a tour guide with walking tours in Glasgow. So this is a bit different for me, that I'm not dragging you all round the streets here in Glasgow, but I'm looking forward to welcoming you all to my beautiful city in spring next year. Fingers crossed. So in this virtual tour, what I would like to give you is a view of Glasgow, which you can hear. It's my hometown. So please, like any Glaswegian, I love a story. I love sharing stories. If you've got any stories you would like to share about Glasgow, or if you've got any questions about Glasgow, or if you know some of the people personally that I'm going to be talking about today, please let me know in the chat. I would love to have you involved in a tour today. And also, I'm sure that you can have closed captioning, but I'm from Glasgow. If there's anything, if I start speaking too fast or if I get a wee bit too excited, there's absolutely no offence zone. Please tell me to slow down or repeat myself. That's absolutely no problem at all. So today we're going to discover a bit about our secret symbols that are embedded absolutely everywhere here in Glasgow. And of course, we're going to be talking a bit about our medical history, which can be a wee bit gruesome as well. So I hope you'll be enjoying your lunch while you'll be hearing these stories about Glasgow. So without further ado, I'm going to take us round my beautiful city. So here is our Glasgow skyline. Now, our city slogan is "People make Glasgow," and you'll see that I've made sure that I've let you know that we have been voted this year by Rough Guide readers friendliest city in the world. Again, I promise, it's true, it happened. And this slogan can be seen all over Glasgow. Now, this is one of the first things that you'll see when you come into the city of Glasgow next year. Hopefully, as many of you can make it as possibly can. And "People make Glasgow" was chosen as our city slogan back when we hosted the Commonwealth Games in 2014. So we're quite proud of the slogan. A survey was done over 42 different countries, and the people were asked what makes Glasgow special. Now, amongst the top answers was kind, smart, innovative, whisky, not really that appropriate for a sporting event. And we went for the top answer, which was the people that make Glasgow. So although it's a lovely saying, and although it's something that makes me quite proud being from Glasgow, and that our fame is the people, I think it's also there to just make sure that we behave ourselves a wee bit as well. Now, you can see this "People make Glasgow" on bins, wains, trains, cars, taxis. You can also see it straight from our city centre, which is George's Square. So on this side, on the left side, we've got Glasgow City Chambers. Now, that is where our City Council are based. That's where Glasgow City Council are based, in this building. So it dates back to 1888. That is when we officially had George's Square, which you can see just in front of the building, as our city centre. That clock tower on the right-hand side is our old city centre, that's Glasgow Cross. And on the left-hand side of the clock tower was the Tontine Hotel. But before it was a Tontine Hotel, it was actually James Watt's workshop. But it's a wee bit more exciting for someone like me because it's a cat cafe now. So it's all rescue cats. You can go in, you can have your tea, you can even do cat yoga. And they have vegan options as well, so don't worry about that. But going back to George's Square, the building that you're seeing, it was opened in 1888 by, of course, Her Royal Highness, Queen Victoria. And up down the flagpole, there's a wee statue of Lady Liberty. And in the middle of the triangle, it's Her Royal Highness Queen Victoria. But that's not the most exciting part about the building. The most exciting part about the building is that it is the largest marble staircase in Western Europe. Yes. So hopefully the building will be open for when you come to visit so you can see this marble staircase. Now, lots of people will tell you that inside that building, there's more marble than the Vatican. Don't believe any Glaswegian that tells you. Don't believe them. It's what it is in the Vatican, they've got 3 flights of marble staircase. In the Glasgow City Chambers, we have 4 flights of marble staircase. So definitely not more marble than the Pope, but we've got the 2 staircases, one is Spanish and one's Italian. And then sometimes you'll see cardinals or bishops outside the city chambers as well, because they're filming inside. So they use the city chambers as a film set for the Vatican, because obviously filming in Glasgow is a wee bit cheaper than what it would be filming all the way in Rome. So keep an eye out for any of the priests or the bishops out, like coming and going from Greg's when you're in George's Square. Now, George's Square also has a nickname. Now, George's Square's nickname is Freedom Square, and it's not Braveheart Square or anything like that. It's Freedom Square, because if you cast your minds to London, they have like a speaker's corner. Well, that's like our speaker's corner in a sense, and it's right in front of a council building. So every protest that can be had is on George's Square. And you'll probably see lots and lots of protests when you do come here later on. That's just proof that if you Google friendliest city in the world, it's going to come up Glasgow. We were also voted in 2019 8th best city in the world. We came above Paris, above Tokyo, and way above Edinburgh. Thank you very much. Now, one of my favourite parts about Glasgow, especially at the moment, is a thriving art scene. The work that you're seeing in front of you now is by the Cobalt Collective. They're an all-female art collective, and they unveiled these posters. It was during the first big national lockdown that we had here in Scotland, and indeed all over the world. Now, these posters were put up all over the city, and they're called Power to the Key Workers. And it was in thanks to, of course, and if you're listening and this applies to you, thank you for your service, to our fantastic NHS workers, and also various key working positions that were really keeping us all going during the first lockdown especially. Now, the Cobalt Collective are one of many artists that are running through the city. So we started getting larger scale murals in our city around about 2008. That was the run up to the Commonwealth Games, as the BBC were coming to film. We needed the place to look nice. And then it's kind of taken on a world of its own. So we're quite late to the game when you're considering other European cities such as like Paris and Berlin, and like even a wee bit closer to home, you've got, I would say, the street art capital of England, Bristol. You've got Shoreditch in London. So we are nipping at the heels. We're really catching up, and it's because of fantastic art collectives like Cobalt Collective. This is them, and they've just completed a mural, and this is near the Barras in the east end of the city, and it's to commemorate a book which is a Booker Prize winner by Douglas Stewart, and it's Shuggie Bain. So I wouldn't recommend it as a read if you're needing cheered up, but it's definitely a wonderful book. It's set in Glasgow, and you'll see the full mural here. It's absolutely beautiful, and I hope that you do get to see it when you come and visit here. But this is my favourite mural by the Cobalt Collective. It's Yesterday We're in Love, Aren't We, with the whole splintering city. And that lady that you're seeing, she's the author of the poem. It's called The Bargain, and it's about falling in love and falling out of love in Glasgow. And this was painted to commemorate the 30th anniversary of our Open Doors Festival here in Glasgow. It's absolutely good. Like, really lucky to have pieces like this round about the city. And we were the the first tour company to offer a live guide round about the murals, and I got to be part of that, which is really exciting. But moving on to probably our most famous pieces of art in the whole city. These are by an originally Australian artist. He's now living in Glasgow, which makes him a Glaswegian. And he does have a ginger beard, so I'm assuming there's some Celtic blood in there somewhere. Now, this artist is called Smug, so it's S-M-U-G. His real name is Sam Bates, and he works completely by himself. He only exclusively uses spray paint, and he created both of these paintings individually. So the lady with her baby was painted in 2018, and that man with the robin was painted in 2016. And individually, he created these in 1 week. He's absolutely phenomenal. We're really, really lucky. He's up and down like the UK's pieces of art is absolutely everywhere, right up to from Dundee to Aberdeen, and right across the world to the silos in Australia. He's just recently completed a large scale piece in the Netherlands as well. He's amazing. But the reason these are so famous is because these paintings mean quite a lot to us here in Glasgow. So both of them are at gable ends of the tenement. Now, a gable end is just exactly what you're looking at there. It's the end of a tenement building, and the tenement buildings in Glasgow were Glasgow's answer to the growing workforce that was coming into the city during the Industrial Revolution, Highland clearances, people coming from Ireland, the shipping industry, the tobacco industry. Lots of people were coming in, and about 60% of Glasgow's population now live in a tenement building. Now, the lady with her baby, I'm going to start with that. So the lady with her baby, now those people survived roughly all the way back about the 6th century. So around about 600 AD, that lady, her name is Thenu, and her father was the king of an area that we now know as Lothian. So that kind of patch in between Glasgow and Edinburgh, that's where her father was the king. Now, Thenu was attacked and raped by a cousin, and as a result of that attack, she became pregnant. Now, she was an unwed mother-to-be. It was she that brought great shame on the family, according to her father, and it was she that deserves to be sentenced to death. She was much beloved. Oh yeah, Emma. Sorry, Emma. I just saw your comment there. Yeah, they're absolutely beautiful. They're much. I mean, if it's translating just with the photographs, like looking up at them, it's absolutely amazing as well. So honestly, you're more than welcome. The kettle is on when you come and visit Glasgow, I promise. So I'm typical Glaswegian. I'll start a story and then start another one, but I'll always tell you the punchline. So Thenu, she was thrown off a cliff in the middle of the night. She was 16 years of age. She was only wee, but she was found at the bottom of the hill, alive, hardy Scots woman. And ladies, unfortunately, if you have the audacity to survive your own murder, you're a witch. So she was put on a boat with no food, no water. She was pushed out to sea. And after all of that, she washed up on the east coast on a wee medieval village called Culross. She was taken in by the monastery there. And after all of that, she gave birth to a bouncing baby boy, and she called him Kentigern. Now, just to confuse you even more, we know those two people by completely different names here in Glasgow. So the lady, her name is either the Mother of Glasgow or Saint Enoch. And that wee baby boy, well, on a Sunday, he's called Saint Kentigern, but to us here in Glasgow, he's called Saint Mungo. Now, together, there are two cities' patron saints, and that wee baby boy went on to found probably the most gorgeous, amazing, incredible religious settlement in the world, and he called it Glasgow. Now, Glasgow is Scottish Gaelic. The romantic translation is Dear Green Place, but the actual translation is Green Hollow, because geographically we sit in a bit of a bowl. Now, before I move on, the eagle-eyed amongst you have probably spotted that both paintings have a wee birdie, a robin. Yes, it absolutely does mean something. But I'm going to bring us back to the symbolism that's in the paintings just now. So we've got a saying in Glasgow, especially when it's talking about our history, and especially when it's talking about our architecture more particularly as well. And it's the old reflects the new. I'm going to refer back to that, but it's really, really prevalent. This is why Smug is such a fantastic artist and he's world renowned. Is in each of the portraits that we're seeing today, I've just told you a story about these people dating back to about 600 AD, but they're wearing modern clothing. The old reflects the new. And also you'll see that there's like a light behind their head, signifying that they're a saint, like a religious deity. But if you look at Saint Enoch and Baby Saint Mungo, she's doing something incredibly human, isn't she? She's breastfeeding her child. And if you look at the portrait of that wee baby all grown up, Saint Mungo, you'll see on his finger, there's a plaster, because all humans bleed. I think that's what's absolutely incredible about Smug's work. It's the level of detail that's in his work is absolutely incredible. Plus, I've heard from some tourists over the years that the older the man of St. Mungo looks a bit like Robin Williams. Just a bit. He's got like the big red nose, which shows that he's either been at the Holy Wine in Glasgow or he's a wee bit cold, which is certainly true as well. Now, that wee birdie, yes, it does mean something. So this is a story and a half. It's a bit of an epic, but it's 4 symbols that you're going to notice absolutely everywhere when you come to Glasgow, when you're here. It's a bird, a bell, a tree, and a fish. And just to show you some examples. University of Glasgow, the bird, the bell, the tree, and the fish. Glasgow City Council, the bird, the bell, the tree, and the fish. And that's wee St. Mungo, just up the top of that crown there. And then we've got some stained glass here. And Glasgow Cathedral, the bird, the bell, the tree, and the fish. So to become a saint, you need to perform a certain amount of miracles. Now, Saint Enoch, his mother, well, she's cheated death twice and she's gave birth to a saint. So pretty much got her sainthood in the bag. She's fine. We'll leave her alone. She's been through it. Now, the wee bird that we saw in both the paintings, and you can see it along here, it's definitely a robin. And how that goes is, well, St. Mungo grew up in that monastery where his mother gave birth to him. He had an adopted father, St. Serf, and St. Serf, he had an aviary with all these little birds. And he also had a wee robin that would sit just on his shoulder. It had a broken wing, so it couldn't really fly. And St. Mungo, it was an all-boys school, so boys were doing what they do best, and they were all being silly and throwing stones at each other. And one of these stones struck the robin and it fell to the ground, presumably dead. Wee Mungo at the time ran over to the wee birdie, caressed it, prayed with all his might, and you'll never guess what? Oof! It came back to life, a miracle. Hallelujah. All of the people couldn't believe it. The bird was maybe just stunned, but it was a nice thing. It was a nice thing for him to do. So bearing in mind, so that's miracle number 1, the bird. Miracle number 2. Now, if you think that St. Mungo, he grew up in a monastery, it was an all-boys school, and, well, he's just got his first miracle now, hasn't he? So all of the other school kids were a bit jealous of him. And the holy fire in the monastery was like looked after on a rotational. So the holy fire is very important, included in all the ceremonies and things like that as part of the monastery. So everybody had to take turns in looking after it. When St. Mungo was looking after it, he fell asleep, and then the boys rushed in, extinguished the fire, and then ran away again, leaving St. Mungo in a bit of a panic. He was armed with a frozen hazel branch, and the power of prayer, and poof, it came back to life, and every single candle in the full monastery burst into flames as well. Hallelujah, a miracle, I guess. I'm going to need a wee bit more imagination for the third miracle, if you don't mind, because we're not really that sure about it. But it's this bell. So this miraculous bell was sent to St Mungo after he was found doing the Lord's work in this lovely new religious settlement called Glasgow. So he came here when he was about 25. He was led by ox. Now, allegedly he lived, he was 180 as well. That bit we're not too sure about either. And this bell was sent from the Vatican, from the Pope himself, to be part of like the religious settlement ceremonies. In Celtic churches, they used ringing bells to call the flock to pray. And another legend has it that this bell was supposed to raise the dead. We're not really sure where the bell came from. The first depiction of the bell we can see is from the 15th century, which is like a good 700 years after St Mungo died, but it makes a poem rhyme, which is this one. So here is a tree that never grew. Here is the bird that never flew. Here is the fish that never swam. And here is the bell that never rang. Now, anybody listening today that's been to any school in Glasgow will know this off by heart. Every Glaswegian school child knows this one off by heart. Now, I've saved the best miracle until last. So you see the fish is quite prominent there. So the king and queen of Strathclyde. Now, when I'm saying Strathclyde, the word Strath is Gaelic, and it means like valley. Breaking it down gently. So valley. So when I'm saying Strathclyde, I'm saying valley of the River Clyde. Super easy once you break it down, I'm sure. So the king gave his queen a beautiful piece of jewellery, a ring to symbolise his undying love. And when the king was on hunting expedition, but a road in the National Strathclyde Water Park. Oh, wow, and you made it out alive, Dom, from Strathclyde Park. Well done. Strathclyde Park has changed completely as well. Scotland's national theme park, it's closed down now. Didn't survive the pandemic, which is a shame. It's probably due to be dismantled anyway, if we're honest. I'm glad they're using the scrap metal for something. But that's really cool. Road as well, that's quite a hard sport. Well done. So the king was out on exhibition with his knights, trotting along, and he spies one of the knights wearing this ring. So two things have happened here. Either the knight has been on the rob, or the queen loves a guy in uniform, and obviously the king has thought the latter. So he waited till this knight was asleep because he was outnumbered, slid the ring off of his finger, threw it in the river, and then came back to the queen. Hey, where's that ring I gave you? And obviously the queen's like, oh, I'll find it. And he said, you have 3 days to come up with this ring, or that's it. You're getting it. Game over. So the only person she could think of to go to was our miracle boy, St Mungo. Now, he's 3 miracles down by this point. He's pals with the Pope. He's got his own religious settlement. So he's like, no worries, Your Highness. I'll help you out. He sends one of his servants down to the River Clyde to catch the first fish. I'm sure you see where I'm going here. The servant brings back a salmon. St Mungo cuts open the salmon's mouth. You'll never guess what was inside. The ring! Hallelujah! A miracle. Now there's a few versions as to what happened to the queen after that, but I'm going to go for the nice version, and it's they all lived happily ever after. Now you'll see these symbols absolutely everywhere here in Glasgow. Absolutely everywhere, especially when you come here. So keep an eye out for them. Some of them are from the 15th century, right up until 2021. We're still incorporating these symbols absolutely everywhere. Now, a famous neighbour of Glasgow Cathedral, which is the cathedral that you're seeing, it's got 3 names. It's St Mungo's Cathedral, the High Kirk, or Glasgow Cathedral. Easy as that. Now, the cathedral dates back to 1134, and we are top of the list here in Glasgow. It has the most intact original copper roof of any house of worship in Europe. Yes, tell everybody, tell your friends that. But it has a famous neighbour, which is, of course, Glasgow Royal Infirmary. So it received its royal charter in 1791, and it has been exponentially improved on, added to, bits taken down, bits put back up again. It has a St Mungo's ward as well. The most haunted ward is Ward 27. And the Royal, as we call it here in Glasgow, so it's in Castle Street. It's right next door to Glasgow Cathedral. And it also, I mean, I feel bad for some of the staff that have to work there, but it also looks right on to, and it has a beautiful bird's eye view of the Glasgow necropolis. Now, if you know your ancient Greek, necropolis means city of the dead. It's probably one of the largest cemeteries in Glasgow. So we have the hospital, the cemetery, and the cathedral all in the one place. That's Glaswegian efficiency for you. Like I said, it's been continually expanded on for numerous years, but like being next to the necropolis isn't all gruesome. We've got large sections of the necropolis dedicated to the staff that worked at the hospital, but not all of the staff died young or anything like that. It was nothing like, some of them lived well into their 80s, and it's presumed, and we think this is probably what happened, that any person that died in service, the hospital covered their funeral burial costs as well, if the family were maybe too poor or too far away to sort that out for them. I want to tell you a wee funny story instead, because I'm sure you know like a lot of the histories, but I found a blog from a Canadian chap. So this is like some of the images that I've had throughout the years at the Glasgow Royal Infirmary. But one important decade, and a busy decade, I'm sure, for the Royal Infirmary was Glasgow in the 1980s. So if you know any of our stories about the 1980s, so that top picture there is the motorway being developed in the 1980s, right behind the hospital. So it would have been so noisy. Then we've got the ice cream van representing the ice cream wars, which would have produced quite a lot of patients at the hospital as well. And one of the Canadian doctors, he said, the city is known for its architecture, sure, it's known for its innovative history, sure, but the most prominent and famous part of the hospital was actually the patients that came through the doors. He said lots of people would come in, like heads cut open, getting stitched up, saying, oh, you should have seen the other fella. And one of my favourite stories was, he said, another fellow came in having just chopped off his only intact finger. And as he was getting, with a power tool, and as he was getting stitched up, it was constantly repeating the whole time, oh, what will my wife do when she finds out about this? I'm sure that was the least of his worries. Now, I can't talk about Glasgow Royal Infirmary without mentioning this chap. So cool that he's got his own memes right here. So Joseph Lister, so the father of modern surgery, and I suppose more topically as well, came up with antiseptic from carbolic acid. But I thought probably it was a lot scarier before his time. Like the survival rate of surgery was at 50%. Now, he was a pioneering surgeon, and in Glasgow he carried out the world's first antiseptic surgery, and that was on the 12th of August 1865. Now, he was also a professor at the University of Glasgow, and he also delivered lots of lectures and studied extensively in the libraries at the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons. And I think probably one of my favourite Joseph Lister facts of all time is the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons still have records of him not returning his library books. So don't feel bad. Even the greatest don't return their library books all the time as well. Interestingly enough, when Joseph Lister was at the University of Edinburgh, he was one of the people to very much object to the Edinburgh Seven. Now, this was a group of women who were the first matriculated women to be introduced into the university status to study medicine. He was actually one of the chaps that refused to teach women in his lectures. But interestingly enough, that's his wife Agnes right there. And Agnes assisted Joseph in every single experiment he did, every single piece of research he did. She helped write up everything. So what it seems to me is just the same as everybody else, really. It seemed Joseph Lister was one of these people who was caught in between being innovative and those good old-fashioned Victorian principles. Well, they very much loved each other and they were together until the end. Now, I want to kind of just brag a wee bit, especially when it comes to the British Nuclear Medicine Society. In the 50-year history, it has had 4 presidents that have came from Glasgow Royal Infirmary. So, Edward McGill, Jim McKillop, Harry Gray, and Brian Neely. And if any of those are watching, hi, shout out. And then we have the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons, which is situated on St Vincent Street, which is actually just down the street from me. It's in the same street as King Tut's Wawa Hut as well, where Oasis were first signed. Now, it's got over 1,400 fellows and senior clinicians, all as memberships, and it actually received its royal charter in 1599. It has seen the like some of the brightest minds in the world pass through its doors. It's a wedding venue as well. It has the Joseph Lister Room too, and it also has lecture halls. Now, more excitingly, I think, is absolutely incredible. So, you know this lady? Jackie Taylor was the very first female president elected in 2018. And not only is this incredible person the president, they also work at Glasgow Royal Infirmary, as well as being an honorary senior clinical lecturer. She was awarded an honorary professor fellowship at the University of Glasgow in 2018. And other famous alum, it's Dr. David Livingstone, I presume, but arguably not the most famous David to pass through the doors. Other most recent famous alumni is David Atherton, British Bake Off winner 2019, is alum of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons in Glasgow as well. Now, of course, I'm going to tell you some stories about this guy here. So Dr. David Livingstone. So it became a bit of celebrity in his time, very rags to riches stories, working class roots. And he came from humble beginnings, one of 7 children. He was brought up in a single room in a mill near Blantyre, just on the banks of the River Clyde. He worked with his brother John when he was a wee boy. And what they done was they spun for the spinning threads that would snap. They would get in there with their wee child fingers and put them back together again. So not only was it a dangerous job for wee children because they could lose a finger, but it was also a really fast-paced job as well. He saved up to go to Andersonian College, and his original had his original sights set on China, but he ended up going to the continent of Africa. He was known as an explorer, a missionary, an imperial reformer, and abolitionist. He was most famous for trying to find the roots of the Nile, and for his work in the places that we now know as Zambia, Zimbabwe, and of course, Malawi. Now, I've got the wee quote there, which is Dr. David Livingstone's probably famous quote. I will go anywhere provided it's forward, but it's not the most famous quote that's associated with Dr. David Livingstone. Of course, it's Henry Morton Stanley. After 6 years of David Livingstone's disappearance, he was sent out to find him, and the famous lines were, "Dr. David Livingstone, I presume." Now, Stanley ripped out his own diary entries from that time, so it's presumed that he's probably just made the greeting up, and The most prominent memory is Stanley that he wasn't really that acquainted with the truth, but I quite like that, because in Glasgow, 9 times out of 10, we don't really let the truth get in the way of a good story. That statue that you're actually seeing of Dr. David Livingstone there on the right-hand side was removed from George's Square in the 1950s, 1956 to be exact, and it was put in front of Glasgow Cathedral. Our version of why he was removed is because he was statue number 13, and of course that's very unlucky. Can't have 13 statues. But I'm going to take us in a wee bit in a different direction. I wanted to mention this guy on a personal level, because my primary school was David Livingstone Memorial Primary School. But I want to take us in a wee bit of a direction, because Eurovision supergroup ABBA, on the 1974 album Waterloo, which they won the Eurovision Song Contest with, and they also mentioned Glasgow in one of their songs, Super Trooper, actually have a song about Dr. David Livingstone called What About Livingstone? And also I've just put that up there, that he's still a pop icon. Even today, you can still get him on a wee phone case. If you want to put it in the chat, I can send you the link so you can get your very own Dr. David Livingstone. Now, the University of Glasgow, I couldn't not mention that, because that was my university as well. You can see now in the logo, it's got the bird, the bell, the tree and the fish. Everyone who has been a student at the University of Glasgow has that picture of the view from Kelvin Bridge of the University Tower, and everybody has a picture of them at the famous cloisters, which are in the middle of the Gilmore Hill campus. That's my wee niece Amelia, isn't she gorgeous? This was the old campus in High Street. University of Glasgow was first opened in 1451, and that was a year after Glasgow achieved royal borough status. You can see that staircase that all those chaps, that's the only part of the original building that still exists today. That was moved brick by brick from the original place in High Street all the way to the Gilmore campus at the moment. There's so much that happened at the university at that time, but they had a famous anatomy building, and in 1818 this happened. So murderer, as all good stories start with a murderer. Matthew Clydesdale's body was donated to the University of Glasgow, and Professor Jeffrey decided that today was the day to shock the body in a process called galvanizing to see what happened. Now, the lecturers were really famous and really full, chock-a-block full of people. And of course, when he shocked the body, all of the muscles started contorting, the voice box was activated, the eyes flung open, this body started retching and writhing all the way from the front bench. And of course, you can see everybody ran away. It was scary. But there was one alleged face in the crowd watching this happen, and it inspired probably one of the most famous stories of all time. That lady with the ringlets is Mary Shelley, and she allegedly was in the audience at that point, and that is where she was inspired to write the legend of Frankenstein's monster. And it has been adapted and readapted. And it's so many, that's probably one of my favourites, is Young Frankenstein, Gene Wilder. Now, I'm going to mention just a tiny bit about nuclear science here in Glasgow, because it's got a lot of words that I can't read and I don't understand. But the nuclear medicine at Glasgow Royal Infirmary was first developed by those studying thyroid disorders. So Edward McGirt, later Muirhead Professor of Medicine, conducted a series of tracer studies in the 1950s and 60s. He also published the experience of radioactive iodine treatment of more than 900 patients as well. And it's developed exponentially since then between our Western Hospital, Glasgow Royal Infirmary, the University of Glasgow, and then our newest addition. I want to just go through, just as we're coming to the end of the tour, I want to just give special shout out to some of our past innovators. So we've got, first up, we've got William Cullen. He designed a small refrigeration machine in 1755. So Cullen trained as an apprentice in Glasgow and graduated as a Doctor of Medicine from the University of Glasgow in 1740. Next, we have Rebecca Strong. She was a pioneering Glasgow matron at the Glasgow Royal Infirmary. So basically, it's her responsibility of modern surgery, modern care when it comes to nursing, and she unveiled a huge training programme at the Royal Infirmary as well. Then we have Sir James Black and his beta block. That's him with his Nobel Prize, by the way. His beta blockers greatly advanced the world of clinical pharmacology. Then we've got Sir Ian Donald. He was a professor of midwifery at the University of Glasgow, and he invented the ultrasound machine. Then we've got Sir Graham Chesdale and Brian Janet, and they developed the Glasgow coma scale. And then we have arguably probably one of the best inventions to ever come out of Glasgow, the miracle hangover cure, the medical marvel that is Iron Brew. Please try this if you haven't when you come to Glasgow. It is amazing, even though it has less sugar in it now. So Glasgow now, so we're talking about Glasgow Royal Infirmary, but we've got the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, but we know it as a different name here in Glasgow. Now, whilst the Royal, as we call it, was named Scotland's best hospital, this has a surprising nickname, and it's called the Death Star. Not because of its reputation, I promise, because of the way it looks, because of the aerial view of it, I promise you. And no tour of Glasgow would be complete without mentioning the big guy, the Duke of Wellington with a cone on his head. Now, I've got some explaining to do. So this dates back to the early 1980s, and this guy isn't famous because of who he is. He's famous because of what we've done to him. This cone has been a tradition here. Now, there's a couple of reasons as to why that keeps happening, but let me give you some facts about Glasgow. Glasgow City Council spend approximately £10,000 per year removing traffic cones from the heads of statues. Also, Glasgow City Council thought it would be a great idea to extend and heighten the base of the statue, making it impossible for us Glaswegians to be able to climb up and put the cone on. This was in 2016, so not long ago at all. Now, what we did, we were furious. Now, we're quite radical with our politics here in Glasgow, and we'll have a protest about anything, hence George's Square is named Freedom Square. And we had a massive protest to protest that, the widening and the heightening of the base. We even had a competition to see how many cones you could fit in his head without it toppling. 26, by the way. And yeah, the council were forced to drop the plans. The hashtag Keep the Cone trended worldwide. So if you were involved with that, thank you ever so much. So reason number one as to why this keeps happening. Glasgow's population, our city centre, is about 650,000, in Greater Glasgow is about 1.2 million, and about 15% of that are students. Students get drunk. Yeah, you see where I'm going with that. Reason number two is it's a bit of a laugh at imperialism, if I'm honest. If I told one of my friends, meet me at the Duke of Wellington, they'd be like, who? Like the guy with the cone. And then reason number three, which is my absolute favourite, and it's perfectly wraps up everything that I've shared with you today, is annoys the council. And it's a fair representation of the people of Glasgow. Now, whilst we've got a long, extensive medical history, a beautiful architecture, in fact, a story that dates back well into the 6th century, it's well and truly the people that make Glasgow. Especially, you'll see Santa Claus up there, just on the left-hand side. He was actually forcibly removed by the police, which is typical Glasgow for me. But I'd like to take the time to thank you ever so much for joining us here on my virtual tour of Glasgow. I absolutely hope that we'll get to see you in the spring of next year. It's been wonderful spending the time with you. And I wish you all safe, I wish you all well, and thank you very much for your time today. Thank you.